Question number 11, Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr Speaker, my question is to the Minister of Internal Affairs. Does he stand by his answers to all supplementary questions to oral questions in the House this year, and if so, why?
Mr Speaker.
Honourable Peter Dunn.
Yes, because they accord with my ministerial responsibility.
Supplementary question, Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Does he accept he has responsibility in this House for the security of government information, and if so, will he now make it clear that he is a suitable person for holding that role by stating that he did not make the draft Kitteridge report on the GCSB available to a Fairfax journalist?
Mr Speaker.
Honourable Peter Dunn, and the first part of that question is acceptable.
Mr Speaker, I have answered that question
Point of order.
Speaker?
Point of order. Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr Speaker, I think you attempted to edit my question. Can you, and Mr Speaker?
I can help the member. There were two supplementaries. The second part of the second supplementary was out of order. The first supplementary is in order, and that one can be answered.
Mr Speaker.
Does the member wish to proceed?
I want a point of order, Mr Speaker.
Point of order, the Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr Speaker, I want to refer you to Speaker's Rulings 1553, which relate to the Prime Minister's requirements for the suitability of ministers to hold roles. Mr Speaker, I am not asking the member whether he leaked the document. What I am asking him is to demonstrate, as is allowed under 1553, that he is a suitable person for holding a role as a minister in this House. Mr Speaker, the question was very carefully worded.
I can help the member. If the member now rephrases both his questions, it'll be over to the Minister which one you address. But if he rephrases the second part of his supplementary question in line with the words he just used, that would be in order. Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Is he prepared to demonstrate to the House today that he is a suitable person for holding the role of security of government information by directly denying that he made the draft Kitteridge report on the GCSB available to a Fairfax journalist?
The difficulty we've now got too is the member's now not repeating the first part of the question he raised. I'll listen to the Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
Well, Mr Speaker, interestingly, I think the first part of the question that the Honourable Trevor Mallard asked could stand, but then he deviates and is in contravention of 3771B, where, Mr Speaker, there is clearly a breach of that particular standing order.
Speaking to the point of order, Mr Speaker.
Speaking to the point of order, the Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr Speaker, the question was very clear, and that is he prepared to demonstrate that he is a suitable person by doing X? Mr Speaker, I have not asked him whether or not he leaked the report on the GCSB to a Fairfax reporter. I'm asking him to demonstrate his suitability by denying it in the House. Clearly, Mr Speaker, any person who was a minister and leaked that report would not be suitable.
I'll hear from the Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
Mr Speaker, if he had put the full stop after demonstrate, that would be fine, or demonstrate to the House. But to go on and add or make a requirement that is, by any reasonable assessment, an imputation, an inference, or even an argument, Mr Speaker, and quite possibly a discreditable reference, then it falls outside standing orders.
The Honourable David Parker.
If that was the concern of a minister in response to a question, he would just deny the allegation. It's very proper for the opposition to try and highlight matters which are disreputable on the part of ministers, and this is an example of where we're trying to do it, and that's quite within standing orders.
I'll hear from the Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
Mr Speaker, if that were the case, then any old question could be asked any old time. There'd be no need to have a 377 contents of questions standing order.
Order. I'm going to allow the member an opportunity to repeat his question as he first asked it, because the question has changed quite substantially. The member has every right to ask the current Minister of Internal Affairs something for which he is responsible for since he's been appointed as Minister of Internal Affairs, and if the question is along those lines, I'll rule it in order. If the member then tries to tease it back to occurrences that occurred some time before the Minister was appointed as the Minister of Internal Affairs, I will be inclined to rule it out of order, and that will be the end of the matter. The Honourable Trevor Mallard, supplementary question.
Is he prepared in the House today to demonstrate today that he is a suitable person to have custody of public information by denying that he made that document available to a Fairfax reporter?
To progress the matter, the Minister can answer the question up until the final edition of that information.
Mr Speaker.
Honourable Peter Dunn.
Mr Speaker, that question has been asked in a couple of forms on the 30th of January and the 11th of February. I stand by the answers given on both those occasions.
Point of order, the Right Honourable
Mr Speaker, this is a matter that's been well traversed by a select committee and by inquiries inside and outside this House. Now, with respect, if the Minister is being asked to demonstrate now a present action that's required of him now, a certain fact that relates to his qualifications for the job, that is still a present matter that the House would like to be assured of. It is not, therefore, a past matter, which is the qualification that Mr Browning tried to put on it. And frankly, if we can't hear the truth behind this, then this is no longer a House of Parliament that gets to the bottom of the matter.
Order. I'll hear from the Honourable Jerry Brown.
Mr Speaker, what Mr Peters is saying is that the question implicitly makes an allegation. Otherwise, there would need to be no use of the word deny. Mr Speaker, that is not within standing orders.
Order. I appreciate the point the member, Mr Peters, is raising. My job is to adhere to standing orders, and therefore this is question time, whereby ministers can be asked about where they have ministerial responsibility. What the member's attempting to do is to devise a system whereby he asks the member to deny an action that occurred prior to him being a minister, and standing orders do not allow that to happen in this House. Point of order, Chris Hipkins.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, the issue that I want to raise with you goes to the issues around character of ministers and whether or not actions prior to them becoming ministers can be questioned in relation to their character and suitability to hold the roles. I can recall examples, for example, Ms Collins questioning previous ministers in the Labor government over actions that they took prior to even being members of Parliament and the implication that that had for their current ministerial roles. What Mr Dunn is being questioned on is something that related to his conduct prior to holding the current ministerial role, but that's no different to Ms Collins' questions to someone who wasn't even a member of Parliament when they did the things that she was questioning them on.
Speaking further to that point of order, Mr Speaker.
Honourable
Mr Speaker, I'd like to draw your attention back to a question earlier today where you allowed Mr Williams to ask a question of the Honourable Mr Woodhouse that related to his experience previous to being a Member of Parliament, and you allowed Mr Woodhouse to answer it. What I'm asking for is some consistency, sir.
Yeah, but I do recall the answer from Mr Woodhouse, and he replied to the effect that that wasn't relevant to the answer, and then proceeded to answer the question. The Minister has now answered the question. If the member still has a further supplementary, I'll listen to it. But order. I appreciate the assistance from the Honourable David Parker, but the Minister has answered that question. Does the member have a further supplementary?
I certainly do. Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, the Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr Speaker, in light of his answers last week, has he given any assurance on the question of his suitability to hold his current role with regard to the security of government information to the Prime Minister, other than through the media in June last year?
Honourable Peter Dunn.
Mr Speaker, prior to taking up this appointment, which actually predates the period of ministerial responsibility, the Prime Minister and I discussed the role and what it entailed, and the outcome of that was that he offered me the job.
Supplementary question. Order. Order. Right Honourable Prime Minister, supplementary question.
Mr. Speaker, can the Minister confirm? Can the Minister confirm that the actual test of whether someone serves as a minister is whether they enjoy the confidence of the Prime Minister of the day? Can the member confirm whether he believes he has the full confidence of the Prime Minister of the day? And can the Minister confirm that
Order. We've now had... I'll hear from the Right Honourable. Order.
Mr. Speaker, the first question is of the Prime Minister, not the Minister. Even though he sought to put it to Mr. Dunn, it's only the Prime Minister that has the confidence. And the second question should have been ruled out because it was a second question.
No, but if anybody wants to ask a supplementary, they should ask a single supplementary. In my opinion, the first supplementary asked by the Prime Minister was completely in order, and the Prime Minister can answer it. Point of order, Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr. Speaker, in order to help the Prime Minister, I seek the leave of the House for the full supplementary question of the Prime Minister to be answered by Mr. Dunn.
Order. Members must still abide by standing orders. Honourable Peter Dunn.
Mr. Speaker, I can only assume that because the Prime Minister offered to appoint me as Minister of Internal Affairs, he has full confidence in my ability to do the job, and I intend to reflect that confidence in the way I carry out this role.
Supplementary question. Supplementary question.
Order. Supplementary question, Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Further to the supplementary question asked by the Prime Minister and the Minister's answer, did the Prime Minister then ask him if he leaked the report?
Honourable Peter Dunn.
Mr. Speaker, that question was put to the Prime Minister last week, and I refer the member to the answer he gave, which I'm not going to disagree with.
Supplementary question.
Order. I need to hear the supplementary question. Supplementary question, Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Further to the Prime Minister's question and the supplementary question, did the member give the Prime Minister any information relating to the making available of the Kitteridge report to a reporter other than through the media?
Order. I don't accept that question has any ministerial responsibility to the current Minister of Internal Affairs.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order, Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr. Speaker, that question has more ministerial responsibility than the one that you allowed from the Prime Minister, which went to the Prime Minister's responsibility.
Order. I'll allow the member, rather than forfeiting a question, to have an attempt at answering a question in line with the current, to ask a question in line with the current ministerial responsibility to the Minister. Supplementary question. Point of order, Honourable David Parker.
I'm confused. I am confused.
Order. It is a point of order.
I am confused how a Speaker can find it in order for the Prime Minister to ask a Minister as to whether he has his confidence, and then for an opposition member not to be able to ask a question that, well, did he check whether he leaked a report before he said he was confident in him?
Order. I don't need assistance. I'm here to help the members' confusion. My duty is to instantly judge how appropriate the question is to the Minister's current responsibility. And I've invited the member to attempt to rephrase his question. Otherwise, we will simply move on this matter. Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Further to further to the Prime Minister's question, which indicates that he has confidence in Mr. Dunn, was one of the factors in building that confidence him making clear to the Prime Minister that he did not leak the Kitteridge report to a Fairfax reporter?
Honourable Peter Dunn.
Mr Speaker, the discussion we had was wide-ranging and dealt with matters relating to the Internal Affairs portfolio, to which the Prime Minister subsequently appointed me.
Question number 12, Holly Walker. Order, order, order. I've now called Holly Walker.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.